In this lecture, we are going to create a new block for creating a search form. Sounds strange, right? There's already a search form block provided by the core of WordPress. In fact, we're using this block in the header of our site. This block is great, but it's not easily customizable. Currently, I'm viewing the search results page on the front end. We have another form for performing search queries. Unlike the form in the header, it isn't possible to replicate this appearance with CSS. There are too many differences from the original design. For this reason, we will create a custom search form block. Let's get started. In your editor, we will create a new folder for storing the files for our custom block. Inside the source/blocks directory, create a folder called search form. Next, create 3 files called block.json, index.js, and main.css. Afterward, let's add some properties. To save time, I think it would be a good idea to copy the code from the block file for the fancy header block. Let's open this file. Next, copy the contents to your clipboard. After copying the entire file, paste it into the block file for the search form block. Let's make some adjustments. First, we are going to empty out the attributes object. Next, set the name, title, category, icon, description, and text domain properties to an empty string. The keywords array can remain empty. In my opinion, copying code from another file is tedious. What if we couldn't find a block.json file? We would need to resort to a copy from an online example. There's an easier way of creating this file. Visual Studio Code supports code snippets. Let me show you an example. Open the index.php plugin file. At the bottom of the file, I'm going to type HTML:5. As I do so, the editor will recommend a series of code snippets. We can click on a code snippet to insert code into the editor. This feature is extremely convenient for creating files. Interestingly, Visual Studio Code allows developers to create custom code snippets. Let's create a code snippet for creating a block file. From the menu, navigate to File, Preferences, User Snippets. Next, we can select the file type for a code snippet. In our case, the code snippet should be applied to JSON files. Let's search for JSON. Afterward, you can select the first option. This option should open a file called json.json. Inside this file, we can add custom snippets for JSON files. It is an object where each property represents a snippet. There's a comment that provides documentation on how to generate a snippet. However, the process can be tedious. Luckily, there's an extension that will generate the code for a snippet. Let's give it a try. Switch over to the Extensions tab. Search for an extension called Snippet Generator by a user called Wenfeng-Du. This extension will help us add a new snippet to the JSON file without writing the code ourselves. Install it in your editor. Next, head back to the block.json file. We are going to select the entire file. Keep it selected. From the menu, navigate to the View Command Palette option. If you're not familiar with the command palette, that's perfectly fine. It's a tool for running scripts created by other extensions. The Snippet Generator extension will create a command for generating a snippet. Let's search for the Generate Snippet command. After selecting this command, we can add a human-readable name for our snippet. This name should be short and concise. Let's set the name to block file. Next, we can add a scope. The scope option does not apply to us. We can skip it. Moving forward, we will be asked to add a prefix. The prefix represents the text that should be typed for finding the snippet. Let's set the prefix to block. Lastly, we can give a description. Set the description to the following: a basic block file. After adding a description, the extension will output a message to inform you that the snippet was created. It's stored in our clipboard. The last step is to head back to the json.json file. Paste the code snippet under the comments, but from within the object. Perfect. We've successfully created a code snippet. By using the snippet extension, we didn't have to create the code snippet manually. We were able to copy and paste an existing code snippet. Despite that, let's quickly review the properties. First things first, code snippets are added as objects. The name of the property must be the name of the code snippet. Inside the code snippet object, we have a prefix, description, and body. The prefix and description are self-explanatory. As for the body property, it's an array. In this array, each item represents a single line. For example, the first item will appear on the first line. The second item will appear in the second line, so on and so forth. Inside each item, you may notice strange characters. These characters represent tabs since our code is indented. Without the extension, we would have had to manually write this entire array. Let's try testing our new snippets. In the block.json file for the search form block, remove the contents of the file. After doing so, type block.json. As you type this keyword into the file, the editor should recommend our code snippets. If it doesn't, you may need to restart your editor for the changes to take effect. By selecting this option, the file should be pre-filled with the same code as before. Awesome. I know that was a long detour. However, it's going to boost our productivity. We do not need to copy this code from another file or page. Creating a code snippet was well worth the time and effort. Let's begin updating these properties. First, set the name property to Udemy Plus/search-form. Next, set the title property to search form. Set the category property to widgets. Update the icon property to star-filled. The description property will be set to the following: adds a search form. Inside the keywords array, add a string that says search form. Lastly, set the text domain property to Udemy Plus. The block file is ready. I knew we flew right by that. However, none of these properties should be new to you. You can always hover your mouse over these properties for a description. The next step is to register the block. Open the registerblocks.php file. Luckily, by simplifying the process for registering a block, we can update our array to let our loop take care of the rest. Inside the blocks array, add another array. Add an index called name. The value for this index will be the name of our folder, which is called search form. The last step is to add UI for our block. Otherwise, the block will not appear from within the Gutenberg editor. Switch over to the index.js file. At the top of the file, import the register block type function from the WordPress/blocks package. Next, import the block file. Importing this file will give us access to the name. Under the import statements, run the register block type function with the block.name property. The second argument is an object of settings. Inside this object, add the edit function. From within this function, we are going to return JSX with a simple message. Our block is finally ready. In the command line, we may need to restart the npm run start command. I'm going to quickly do so. In the browser, refresh the editor. Let's add the search form block to the page. As you can see, the block has been successfully registered. Great! We've created our second block. In the next set of lectures, we will begin adding the UI for the block along with options for modifying the appearance.